Welcome back to FastFreddyRC, and today we're going to do an unboxing video of the Tamiya Grasshopper II Black Edition. Now if you're a Tamiya fan, we all know about the Grasshopper. When it originally came out in 1984, it was an instant and major success for Tamiya. As an entry-level kit, it was known for its ease of assembly and its durability. And in fact, today we often use the term bulletproof when referring to the Grasshopper's gearbox. The Grasshopper is a fantastic entry-level kit and tons of fun to drive. Ever seen a real Grasshopper in the wild? Notice how they jump all over the place with no rhyme or reason as to why? Well, that's kind of the driving experience you'll have with the Tamiya Grasshopper. With its solid axle and pogo stick shocks, as we like to call them, the Grasshopper bounces all over the place, but man, what a fun kit to drive. So is it any wonder that Tamiya decided to take the success of the original and come out with a new version of the Grasshopper called the Grasshopper II in 1988? Now looking at the overall design, you might say they didn't make that many changes to the original. But on closer inspection, you'll find that the chassis is more robust than the original. The front arms are different, and now the rear axle has a rolling rear axle just like on the Tamiya Hornet. Other changes are they've upgraded the front and rear shocks, added new one-piece wheels, and given you ribbed front tires as well as pin-spiked rear tires, replacing the sand paddle tires of the original, which I don't have on here. And of course, there's a new body design. So the improvements to the kit, although not major, are still going to be significant when it comes to the driving experience. From a performance point of view, if you take into account the new shocks, pin-spiked tires, and the rolling rear axle, all of these should mean that the Grasshopper II will be more controllable. So what about the Grasshopper II Black Edition? What makes it so different? Well, the Black Edition is a relatively new version of the Grasshopper II. I say new because it took 33 years for Tamiya to come out with a new version of this kit. 33 years! So in 2021, the Black Edition Grasshopper II kit was born and released to the market. Now right off the bat, you can see that the body is black, and in fact the body's pre-molded in black. So if you're a beginner or don't have any interest in having to paint a body, this kit is perfect for you. You'll also notice that the wheels are all in black too. So the Black Edition of the Grasshopper II is really just that, completely black all around. So the question then is, other than color, is there anything else that's special about the kit? Well, because it's black, you get a completely different set of decals designed specifically for this kit, so that's cool. But I would say that doesn't really make it that special. So what does make it special then? Well, for me, there's only one real reason that the Black Edition is special, and that's because it comes with oil-filled shocks. In fact, the Grasshopper II Black Edition is the only kit out of the Grasshopper family of cars that comes with CVA oil shocks. So that is very cool. So as a whole, if you're going for the Grasshopper II Black Edition, you're really only doing so for two reasons. One, you prefer the black body and different decals over the standard Grasshopper II, and two, you want to get the CVA oil-filled shocks upgrade. For me, the oil-filled shocks is really the only major addition to this kit and the best reason to buy the Black Edition. Now in some ways, I would say that this kit is a bit of a disappointment. For a new edition of this car to come out 33 years later and only really just add oil-filled shocks and a color change, it seems a bit light to me. I think bare minimum, if they had added a full set of ball bearings to this kit, it'd feel more like a modern day improvement and give you a real reason to buy the Black Edition kit over the regular Grasshopper II kit. It certainly would make it a whole lot cooler. But who knows? Tamiya have a certain way of doing things, and this kit isn't very easy to find now, as technically it's already been discontinued. So what does that mean? Did they do enough to give people enough interest in buying this one? Was it a flop? What do you think? feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I will say that I have heard rumors that they're going to be bringing the Black Edition kit out again, which maybe makes sense as the Black Edition of the original Grasshopper is going to be making a comeback end of this year. And for me, the Black Edition of the original Grasshopper is one of my all-time liveries of this kit. Regardless, I'm excited to dive into the build of this one, as it will be interesting to see just how different the build is to the original and see what sort of retooling was done to make the chassis more robust. So with that, let's get to the unboxing. So I've taken the plastic off just to make this easier, but I'm really excited to take a look at this because I think it's just so cool to be the Black Edition versus the standard Grasshopper 2. So let's see if we can't get into this. Come on. Seems to be stuck. There we go. Right on. So very, very cool. So here obviously is our body and completely molded in black. And like I said before, I won't be painting this. I'm gonna decal it up just as it is. The other interesting thing is, remember when we did the Mad Bull build, this is the same body as the Mad Bull. The only difference is they redesigned this piece because obviously this, you only need this amount of space. But for the Mad Bull, it had to be opened up a lot more to fit the whole shock system at the front. But essentially it's the same body, but I do think that looks really, really cool. I do like that body. So then of course, here we go, there are our tires. So we've got pin spike tires for the rear. We've got rib tires at the front. Very, very cool. So there's a lot more traction because the Grasshopper with its paddle tires, it worked for sand and it still works for dirt, but this will, you know, work for everything. I think you're just gonna find there's a lot more traction in this car than the regular Grasshopper. Then of course, here we go. There are our Grasshopper Black Edition wheels. Very, very cool. So they look a little different on the rear versus the front. But again, they're black, very, very cool. Love that. Then here is our Grasshopper 2 main chassis. Very cool. Few differences over the regular Grasshopper, but it's going to be fun to kind of play around and put this one together. And then of course we have our gearbox. Now this is no different to a regular Grasshopper, and as I've said before, and many people talk about this, the Grasshopper gearbox is literally, it just literally seems bulletproof. You can put a Grasshopper through its paces without worrying too much about the back end. So a Grasshopper and the Grasshopper 2s, they are a great first RC kit to build. And they'll last you a really long time. Very cool, love that. And then of course in this bag, you can see that we've got our battery door here. We've got our suspension pieces right here. We've got the pieces for the wheels, I believe, for this one, for attaching the wheels. We've got these pieces here, which are for attaching the shocks. The shocks don't get mounted directly onto the gearbox like in a regular Grasshopper. There are pieces you put on for the suspension to, for the shocks to attach to. And then on this side, you can see we've got our arms, and then there our front brace, which goes over top of that. So that's very similar to our standard Grasshopper build. Then of course this one comes with, oh, interesting. See, I went to Tamco for this one because you couldn't get the Black Edition anywhere else. And this is coming with a Carson ESC. Interesting. So I'm gonna have to take a look at that because you can also see that it comes with the Carson plug and there is a Tamiya adapter for this. Interesting. That'll be a new experience in putting it together because it's a different plug and a different ESC. Never used one of these before. Interesting. And then, of course, here is our box of extra goodies. So let's just undo that. And we'll undo that. And let's take a look and see what we've got inside of here. Well, there is bag C, which you can see has little ball connectors. We've got the plastic bushings, our box wrench. We've got our front A-arms in there too, you can see. And of course, we've got some screw pins, screws, regular clips, etc. So that's bag C. Then we've got bag D. Well, that's interesting. Not much in bag D, as you can see. And only a few screws and a couple of pins. Interesting. Then, of course, there are our pieces for the shocks. Interesting. And looks like there's another set as well for the shocks. And of course, you can see this is for the oil-filled shocks. You can see those pieces right there. Interesting. And then, of course, there are the top and bottom pieces plus our cylinders for those oil-filled shocks. Very, very cool. Now, the one thing I screwed up on earlier, which you saw the little blurb, is that I always forget about the Tamiya Super G, which was the Super Grasshopper that came out in 1990, which actually did come with the oil-filled shocks, but it also came with a 540 motor. And it's the only one that came with a 540 motor. All of these come standard with the 380 motor, being a beginner kit. So it's interesting. The Super G always skips my mind because it's never been re-released since 1990. And then, of course, we've got our oil. We've got the different coil springs for front and rear. We've got our damper pieces. We've got our ball connectors, our pistons. Very, very cool. So that'll be everything to do with making the shocks. Then, of course, we have our driver figure. Very cool. And we've got our servo saver pieces in there as well. Cool. And then, of course, there are all of our gears. And again, the Grasshopper drivetrain is pretty much bulletproof. So you shouldn't have too much problem with this at all. It's another great reason that this is a beginner kit. And then we've got bag B. And inside there, we've got this is our drivetrain shaft. We've got our steering rods, more screws, more washers, zip ties, and our connector pieces for the steering, and our pins, which will be used for that rolling back end. So those are in there as well. That's bag C. And then for bag A, we've got our drivetrain pieces, because these are what are going to go through the axles themselves. And that's where you'll eventually attach your rear wheels. But again, these are all metal and they're quite heavy duty. So another reason why the gearbox is pretty much bulletproof. We've got screws, we've got some grease, we've got some plastic bushings. And again, I'm going to replace all that with a full set of ball bearings. Very, very cool. And then, of course, we have our bumper. Standard Grasshopper bumper, basically. And then, of course, in here, and if I can open it up here, there we go. They've wrapped it up, but there is our tiny 380 motor. I always find these ones quite interesting. They're just how small they are. But you can obviously upgrade this to a 540 if you want. I'm going to stick with the 380 for now, but it's there. So then we've got the decals. Very, very cool. which I like. I like the color scheme here. I mean, along with the black body, these decals are going to pop, and they're kind of more subtle than the blue and red on the white. So I think as a whole, this is going to look pretty sharp. They do have a different manual here, which is interesting. So the Grasshopper, caution when operating. What is the difference? 14. Well, I guess we'll see when we go along. But from what I gather, this extra manual piece is because of the oil-filled shocks, and probably a different way that you're supposed to attach everything, because we are using the oil-filled shocks. But it's interesting that it is a completely different or an additional instruction manual. But it must be the reason, because you can see it's all about the oil-filled shocks and how to attach them to the chassis. So if we go back to this now, which is our main Grasshopper II manual, let's see here. Just out of curiosity, we're going through, we're going to work on the gearbox first. But is there 8, 9, 13, 14? Aha! So it is to do with the oil-filled shocks, because notice that if you were using the regular shocks that would normally come with it, these are just the pieces that you would put into it that are the plastic ones that will be basically for the pogo sticks. Well, we have the oil-filled shock, so it's going to be totally different. So that's what the supplemental instructions are for. But again, the instructions for this are very well laid out, and as a beginner kit, if you're a beginner in the hobby, just wanting to get started, a Grasshopper 2 is a perfect kit for you, and the Grasshopper II Black Edition will give you that additional suspension because of those oil-filled shocks. So I'm excited to get started on this. So that is the unboxing for the Tamiya Grasshopper II Black Edition. And again, if you are building this and are building it with me and want to have early access to some of these build videos, be sure to become a Fastlane Pass member, because I usually make the videos in batches and then put them all out on YouTube. If you're not a member, they'll come out once a week. If you are a member, you'll have access to all of them and any other videos that I have that are in the back office for YouTube and ready to launch. So be sure to become a member if you're interested in getting early access to those build videos. I also have a Pit Lane membership, which helps the channel grow. So if you just want to support the channel, be sure to become a Pit Lane member. And I always do a monthly shout out for my members, because without your support, this channel wouldn't exist. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for coming along the journey of unboxing this Grasshopper II. And until next time, we'll see you in another video.